दीदी अब तो 6 घंटे सो रहे हैं 6 घंटे क्या कहते हैं।
Okay, so as usual, let's begin with 3 ohms and then we will move forward. And Anita, in the meantime, if you want to connect with Shashi
Yes.
and see if he wants to join, but
Yes.
in the meantime, we'll begin.
Okay.
So let's take a deep breath in. So namaste everyone. We begin with this discussion of this topic, the power of intention, which was sometimes interpreted as Sankalpa, power of intention in daily living. Now, there are various schools that will say, where your mind goes, you fruition, whatever you think of, you make it happen. And there are some meditative schools who practice certain types of meditation which are focused in the Ajna chakra, in the head center, where you want to use your willpower to make whatever you want. And this kind of an approach is not the same approach as you becoming an instrument of the cosmic flow and let what the cosmos wants out of you as the instrument to let it flow. So today's conversation is really about understanding ourselves as an instrument of the cosmic flow, along with the idea of the idea of understanding what is the role of intention or willpower. Okay, so I'm going to request everyone to stay muted until such time you want to speak up, then in which case you can raise your hand. Okay, and then of course you can speak. So coming back over here, the in our spiritual understanding, we say that when we are fully surrendered to God and to the cosmic flow, out of that, in our meditative sense, we get insights within us that makes us sense that this is our duty to do. And to do our duty, we don't need to go searching for our duty. In fact, the nature of the cosmic flow is such that for you, the duty comes and stands in front of you. And so all you have to do is engage with it in a wholehearted way. So, whereas on the other hand, when you bring in your willpower to say, this is what I'm going to do, that willpower can lead you astray in a different direction. We say in yoga that each one of us as an instrument of the cosmic flow, we are born with certain set of programs, which is our duties, what we are going to do in this life. And this is what is expressed in the form of your astrology chart, right? People will say in your astrology chart, based upon the planetary condition, how your life is flowing and things like that, right? So that expression, the astrology chart, is what we will say is the trajectory of our life. When we are flowing through life, we can encounter 3 kinds of situations. One kind of situation, when you deal with it, it is part of what you should be doing. And this is what is called your swadharma. There is another category that your mind comes in the way and you decide you want to do something else. And then when you do that, you go away from what you're meant to be. And that we say is in the nature of adharma. That is something that you shouldn't be doing that will have consequences. Now, in between, there is a certain kind of activity which you do, which is neither your active swadharma, nor is it going against the flow, but it is what we call as neutral territory. If you do it, fine. If you didn't do it, it's fine. So we want to be in the zone of what we call of dharma. And if we deviate a little, let's make sure we don't go into the adharma zone. We stay within the neutral territory. And this is the trajectory of our cosmic flow that the astrology chart, tells us as we being instruments of the cosmic flow. However, with the role of power of intention, you can definitely go towards an adharmic state. And if you go in that adharmic state and you push your intention, the first thing that it will manifest in the form of, if it is a significant deviation in adharma, it will come in the form of mental imbalance, feeling anxiety, anger, and in worst cases, it can come in the form of schizophrenia, in the form of depression. All these kinds of things that will all happen. In smaller cases, where you're slightly deviating, but you're doing in that deviated state for a long time, it will result in chronic diseases that will come and manifest within you. So the idea of Sankalpa, or the power of will, the intention, should always be to be in sync with the cosmic flow. And as Swami Ved Bharati apparently used to say, or Swami Rama from the Himalayan school, that the true Sankalpa is that of being in sync with the cosmic flow. And for you to know what your purpose is through that, it expresses in a soft and simple way. There is no effort involved. It comes so slightly within you, you know within yourself, like the voice of the conscience within you, that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it comes in a soft way. There is no major effort involved. And the moment you take a step forward, all the doors open. This is the nature of what is called the pure Sankalpa, or the divine intent flowing through you as an instrument of the cosmic flow. When we go to push ourselves to get into the cosmic flow, and we say, no, we want to do something different in the cosmic flow, then in which case it results in problem. This is in a nutshell the nature of the power of intention in daily living. It can lead you astray, it can lead you on the path, unless you have that internal meditative awareness within, and you keep your willpower at a low tuned level, rather than pushing the willpower, then in which case things will all fall into place. Now, you can all understand, in the commonplace, people think, the effort you put in is what will give you the results, right? So the common way of thinking for most people is, we had one of our yoga attendees who no longer comes to us. She used to come to our temple. This lady used to tell us, her father used to tell her, do work with tension on your work. Put more stress and more work. People say, lay stress on something. What is the meaning of lay stress on something? Put your willpower over there. And that's the way to move it forward. That is an idea of what we call pushing it as opposed to letting it happen. So the concept of pure Sankalpa and the power of intention in daily living is that you should let the intention flow through smoothly, easily, without any effort, and that is the zone of the Swadharma. And the moment you have to push, it is the mind that is inducing the willpower to do things, and that may not necessarily be in the right direction. That actually, in about 5 to 10 minutes, is a nutshell about the topic today. And I'm sure there are a lot of questions that will come, because people always want to say you have to put in effort to get things done, right? So how does that fall into place? The idea is mild effort that gives results is the true purpose of our Swadharma. So Dr. Sundara Kulkarni, Dr. Ashok Agrawala, go ahead first.
The question I was going to raise is that there is a big concept of free will. And that what, as you're pointing out, that from Agna Chakra, if we push our intention, we have the free will to exercise that and make things happen. So to that extent, we are free to execute what we intend to. Is that correct?
Okay, let's understand the concept of this free will in a better sense. We as cosmic beings, this body that you see in each one of us, I've said in previous occasions that this is just like the printed paper with the computer that is printing on the paper being in a remote location. In other words, our causal being is elsewhere, and the subtle body is the vibration that is communicating into this physical body. And this physical body is nothing like a remote computer printing on the printer and this paper coming out. That's all we are, right? So now, what happens is, as an instrument of the cosmic flow, we have been given a certain set of jobs to do. So in many ways, a good parallel is, if you think in terms of the Mars probe, which was sent into space to go and probe Mars. Now, there is constant connection from the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena, where they are always connecting into it to get signals, the webcam on the Mars probe, seeing everything in space over there, and all the sensors it has to know what is happening. Now, what happens is, when the Mars probe goes on the other side of Mars, there is, for a few minutes or maybe an hour or so, the connection with the Mars probe is lost. So when it is lost over there, the Mars probe, with its own webcam over there, all its sensors over there, it has to make independent decision how to get out of trouble. So our free will with our sense organs is to make sure we stay out of trouble in life. That is the role of the free will. The free will is not a zone where you get into force your power of intention that goes in an adharmic way. But the free will is to make sure that you don't get into trouble. So in other words, in a more commonplace kind of example, the role of your free will is, when you're going to cross the road, to decide whether it is safe to cross the road and cross the road. And the role of the free will is not to decide that you're going to go against the cosmic flow, which is of a deeper degree. So Ashokji, does that represent a satisfactory answer for you?
Oh yeah, very much so. And you can draw all kinds of analogies. Like these days, you have the Tesla car, which does the self-driving. And so you can sit there and let it drive. And you're specifying the bigger destination in terms of the path, destination where you're going to go. However, if it starts misbehaving, which it does, then you come in and interject. That's the things coming from the cosmic flow, which can come in. However, if the car decides not to listen to me, then I can get into accidents. And that's exactly what you're talking about. That if my intention goes against what the basic direction is, then we get into trouble. But the basic fact is that the way the human entity is created, it is capable of carrying out autonomous functions without direct intervention from upstairs to a very substantial degree. And many of us end up misusing that capability. So in the free will aspect, there are two. One is the functionality as to what can be done. And second, what is done. Can be done, we have tremendous flexibility. What is done depends on whether it's coming from ego or it is coming from cosmic flow.
Thank you. So, Sundaraji, you were going to say
Yes.
something. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, Swadharma as at different stages of life. Swadharma as an adult, it's easier to understand. Swadharma as a child, or especially teenagers, where you are deciding what role you play in life, or how you can help the world, or whatever you want to do. So how does Swadharma change with every stage of your life?
Okay. The thing is basically the Swadharma of yours is governed by the cosmic programs embedded in you, which we call in yoga as karmas and kleshas.
Okay.
So, what happens is, as you live through life, the karmas and kleshas make situations happen for you in life. All the situations you encounter. You got married, you had a job, you had children, all the ringers of life you go through in managing all of these things. These are all unfolding of your program. Now, what happens is, as more and more of the programs unfold, and to some of them you react, but a lot of them you accept and don't react. By the process of not reacting, your karmas and kleshas slowly wear off. And any remaining a small amount of reactions that may be there with you for a longer period of time. But as you grow older and the level of karmas and kleshas within you become less and less, what happens is you become less reactive and more accepting of situations. And what happens is, because the amount of programs in you has depleted so much, as we say in yoga, you have become more purified, right? As a result of which, automatically your orientation and everything is changing as it should. So it is not like our Swadharma is changing. It is that our Swadharma adapts as the programs within us deplete. And so that is how I would kind of put it for you.
Thank you.
So now let me introduce over here. We have Sri Shashidhar Chinta from Hyderabad in India, who is joining us today for the first time. And he is well known to Anita Rao, whom you see over there from her childhood. And he has done a lot of non-profit work in India, and his main goal is to help people from a more spiritual angle. Earlier in life, he used to be more from a socio-political angle, and now it is more in a spiritual and social development angle. So with that as an introduction, I will ask Shashidharji to contribute. We have actually just, you came in a little late, but we defined the idea of power of intention or Sankalpa in daily living, that it is important to be in sync with our inner guidance, which we say is the pure Sankalpa, as opposed to the mental invocation of willpower to move anything. That is the distinction. By pushing the willpower through your mental desires, you can actually go into the zone of adharma. But when you are in the pure Sankalpa and letting go, and the inner guidance guides you, and whatever you're meant to do comes in front of you, that is how you recognize the pure Sankalpa within you to engage with what your Swadharma is meant to do. So that was where we have approached. So Shashidharji, please go ahead if you'd like to share something with us.
Thank you, and I apologize for the delay because it took some time for me to get into my computer. I didn't have any help, and I'm really bad at this. Last time I told you all. So anyway, now I'm learning. Good that sometimes when we have to depend on ourselves, we slowly learn things faster. And it was a good introduction. The gist of it has been given, the difference between the will and the pure Sankalpa, which is very well defined by you, sir. Now, I would like to always go to the root of the things. When we talk about Sankalpa, there are several levels at which Sankalpa operates in our day-to-day lives. Now, for example, most commonly understood Sankalpa that we see, especially in India and in Indian, is when they go to the temple and the priest in the temple asks you to do the Sankalpa. He asks you to bless the flowers and the kumkuma and other things which are kept in the plate, and says, please do your Sankalpa. And he takes your name. It's a very systematic decreeing, I would say, which they do, like very, very precise, clear, with clarity, defining from where you are, at what position you are, in which country you are, at what time you are, and your Gotra. Gotra means it is connected with your soul, the source of the hierarchy of your ancestors and the soul that has come down. All these things are very clearly asked, and they are chanted before they do the puja on your behalf. Because we do not know all these mantras and chantings and everything, the priests are in that situation where they're trained to do the prayers for us. And so that's where the scene is. Sankalpa is, what is it that is expected of us when we are asked to do the Sankalpa is, if we have having any wishes in our day-to-day life, which are like, it could be a differentiation between the pure Sankalpa and this Sankalpa, and it could be adharmic, because we are mostly interested in material things, with our desires and with our attachments to our families, for our children and everything. So we'll not go into that definition, but that is what is expected at a mundane level for our material life. But the pure Sankalpa is a totally different thing, which has already been explained to you. I must have missed out the best part of it because of my delay. But pure Sankalpa, as we say, comes from a different plane altogether. Like the word very pure. Pure is, there is a certain amount of purity, and this purity is closer towards the divine, which is beyond space and time in us, which we call it Atma or soul. Different from Jivatma, the incarnate or the embodied. So that is the closest to the divinity. The Atma is closest to the divinity. And that's the reason why that is the pure Sankalpa. Now, that Sankalpa sometimes happens even without your intention. The moment you have purification in you, then it is the divine will that operates within you. And that takes over. And that is a Sankalpa of the divine, for which you have already surrendered completely. That is the Sharanagati that you have done to the Supreme, whom you have recognized as the one and the only, which has become the whole of this creation, and there is nothing where it is not. You can give any name to it. People give so many names to that one principle, or one scientists would say it's a field energy, or others would say by some other name, or Brahman, or beyond, but it doesn't matter. And that is why this pure Sankalpa is something which we have to progress towards, and that is what is the sadhana, according to me. And it operates at several levels. Now, we'll get back again to the root of the definition of Samkalpa. Sam is that which brings together, and Kalpa is, sometimes there are different understandings of Kalpa. It is sometimes time, or I wouldn't say within the framework of space and time. It is one continuum of small connected, you call it prana or the energies or whatever it is that is in operation, that happens once you intend something with all your being, then that comes into the play, and it guides the manifestation of that intention at every level of your being, internalizing at every stage of your panchakoshas, and see that it manifests. That which you're intending will start manifesting. This is a little complicated when I say that that highest principle of pure Sankalpa knows it has its own divine intelligence, and it knows how to operate first and internalize at the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Vijnanamaya Kosha is the Anandamaya, from the Anandamaya Kosha, which is pure love, which is closest to the purification. And by the way, one more important thing, as we are all yogis here, we are connected with yoga. The key is, the word is purification. Everything happens, the speed at which it happens is all because of our parisuddhata, or our purification at every level of our being. And when that is there for us, which is not just sattva, it is probably even beyond sattva, that gets us in connection with our higher soul, that this operation starts taking place and starts materializing fast at Vijnanamaya Kosha. Now, there is a misunderstanding in my view, because this is a debatable thing, many people do not agree, that they equate the spirit and soul in the West. That's why the West never is precise in its definition of what is what. The soul is not the spirit. The Vijnanamaya Kosha is also matter. Vijnanamaya Kosha is the psychic. Psychic means the soul. It is not the mind. We think psychology is the science of the mind. That is wrong. In Greece, the etymology is psychos is the soul. Just because the earlier scientists like Aristotle and others did not understand fully how, unlike our Vedic rishis, they just simply put it as metaphysics, that which is beyond the physical world, you see. And then they put it as a subject, and psychology was put under as the science of the mind. It is not the science of the mind. Vijnanamaya Kosha is your causal body, and it is the soul. And the soul is of the same matter as the causal body. It is almost perfect, but still it is matter. From the physical Annamaya to the Pranamaya, which is more subtle, from the Pranamaya to the Manomaya Kosha, which is a lot more subtle and more powerful. As it becomes more subtle and more pure, the power of that increases much more.
Can I interrupt you?
It's a process of purification and refinement.
Can I interrupt you a little bit here? Since we are using more technical terms like koshas and things, I think we want people to become more aware what they mean. Otherwise, we shouldn't use those technical terms. I think it's much simpler if we can avoid technical terms to explain to people.
Okay.
Maybe what we can do is, the thing is, you see what happens.
Something to be understood on in the path of yoga.
See what happens is.
So anyway,
if you look from the angle of the yoga itself, in fact, the idea of koshas are not inherent to the core elements of yoga that comes from the Yoga Sutras. In fact, the kosha business has really come, and it is not there in Ayurveda either. It has really come from the Upanishadic, Bhriguvalli, from the Taittiriya Upanishad. It has been imported by people who want to bring within their own, expression of yoga, how they want to link it with with one Upanishad. They have brought these concepts. So koshas are not measurable. Whereas on the other hand, when we go into the true yogic element, we are working with only the karna sharira, the causal body, the sukshma sharira, the subtle or the vibration body, and the sthula sharira or the gross body. And the key element that when we work with all of these yoga elements is It all starts from the chitta and they work through. So the kosha system, people may be familiar with it, but people all think of it in a different way. And for us to get over there, we are creating more terms and more terminologies for people to handle. Why don't we do the following?
Yeah.
We can open up people to
Yeah.
questions and let them ask, because finally this
Yeah.
this forum is all about how for people who attend over here, how to deal with their own life and how their power of intention and how they work in their life, and any confusion or thoughts they may have, how to think about it. So let's open up the forum. Any questions from
Okay.
anyone?
Yeah, please. I think I made it quite clear that the pure Sankalpa is something which is from the highest level, how it operates and how it manifests. If there's any questions, you can always ask. I'll throw it open.
Yeah,
So
hi. This is Raju. I'm Anita's husband. Good morning. Thank you for sharing. Namaste. I wanted to ask you about your transition from your socio-political activities and life into what you're doing now. How did that take place, and how did that guidance come about, and what was your experience throughout that process?
excellent. This will be something that is useful for people to learn how a person's sankalpa and life orientation changes. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Like doctor has already said, that these are all your previous karmas, the kleshas and the samskaras that come with you. You see, when come in the cycle of the reincarnation. Tell you the truth, I don't think I did anything good or very positive in the earlier years of my life till I was 23, till I came to my post-graduation, where I seriously started my Guru Swami in my life. So before that, it's like a film story. I was in student politics, into fights, into drinking, smoking, and I was atheist. I never believed, and I'm a product of JNU, and I was an atheist. All these things were there. But what happens is there is something called the carryover that comes over, and that is what we call it the Swadharma. The Swadharma is the dharma of yourself that is coming over from several lives. And it was already there. The moment I started reading Swami Vivekananda, I never get tears in my eyes. It was like electric current shooting through my body, and probably the Kundalini awakening, I have no idea. Probably it was already at a certain stage that tears would come. And then many things started becoming new, and many of my doubts were just being cleared so fast. So all this carryover that came over from the past is what I attribute to how this transformation came about. And then there were some quotations of Swami Vivekananda when I started reading his works, which he said that in the beginning, the quotation that really attracted me to him was, "So long as millions live in hunger and ignorance, I hold every man a traitor, who having been educated at their expense pays not the least heed to them." This is revolutionary, like Marx. Later on, as I progressed, he said, "You have no right." I was convinced, and I was trying to, like a newfound theory, I was trying to discuss things and all that. Then he said, "You have no right to talk about God unless you experience it." Then I said, "Yeah, that's absolutely right. Without experience, my intellectual understanding is of no use." So I just didn't get into my MPhil and PhD, where I was supposed to be getting into, where I was got into actually. But I didn't take it up, and I just went off to Rishikesh, the Divine Life Society, the Yoga Vedanta Forest Academy. I did my yoga and became a Acharya. And from there, I went around the hills like a bhikshu in the Himalayas. I had a lot of experiences going around, seeing our own people and understanding the roots of our culture at different levels in different regions of the Himalayas. And then the humility started coming in. Initially, I used to think that all this is for moksha and mukti. But later on, when I had my spiritual experiences, which came much later on after another 5 years, this was in the 80s, 79, 80 that I finished my master's and went to the Himalayas. But in 84, 85, I decided I had to work because a lot of problems came in the family, and I had to take care of the family, and we lost everything. My father was a big industrialist, and then I had to take the responsibilities. And then I said, enough is enough. After it stabilized, I went off to Tiruvannamalai, Arunachala, did my meditations there, and there I had my spiritual experiences. And once I had the experience, the story is different. You don't want to talk about it or discuss about it because it is beyond your expression and beyond your limited mind. It is an experience. And there it is, you start enjoying your own silence, and there is no more to discuss or talk unless there are seekers who are really serious about in their quest, in their inner search, where sometimes we need to help. That is, if it is divinely ordained, you will have to stand by them and help these sincere souls who are seeking. And so after that experience, there is no more moksha or mukti. You surrender to the divine and you flow with the divine will. And that is where I had my intellectual understanding came, especially when I was reading Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo would talk of a differentiate between Advaita and Purna Advaita, Purna Vedanta. He would say, yes, there are two great personalities during that time. You see, Sri Ramana Maharshi was called the great impersonal. He was totally impersonal. He was in his Brahmanic world. You see, he was in that Brahma, eternally in oblivion, and he would radiate the divine energy all around him. People would get their answers to their questions, and people would be satiated at every level in his presence. And then the other was one of the greatest intellectuals. He was the great personality, and this was the impersonality. He was the great personality, and he would intellectually make us understand. And he said, what happens? Okay, you get your moksha and mukti. What happens then? You become one with the Brahman, but the Brahman is willed and has become the creation and is flowing in the creation. And so you go into that and you come back into the creation again and to support the creation as per the divine will. So that cycle goes on as long as the Supreme Creator is keeping this going on in his dance, the dance of Shiva, like last time someone was talking about the dance of Shiva. The creation goes on till again, like will is not really the Sankalpa, but the divine, pure divine will is like the pure Sankalpa. He intended, and then the will came. Along with the will came the spandana, the vibration. The vibration as a sound, that is the pranava, the om. And om is the pranava swarupini, the supreme mother. All that we see, the material world of ours is the supreme mother. In fact, there is no male. I like a very nice story of Mirabai, actually. It's a very beautiful story. Probably in the occasion comes, I can tell that. So in reality, there is nothing called a male. It's all the Supreme Mother, and from her the Trinity has come, and this whole creation and the Leela is going on, and it will keep on going. And that is what was the understanding. And then surrender, because that supreme intelligence is way beyond our understanding, and it knows what has to be done. And the smart thing is to surrender completely to it. And that is how my life took a turn. And there, flowing wherever the need is there I work, where the need is there for the country, for the grassroots levels, at every level, wherever the life can be transformed, or the souls that are seeking are ready
So thank you, Shashidharji, for this thing. I would like to point out some key things that he just mentioned over here. The first thing he mentioned is he was in a crisis, and that is why he went looking, right? So so what happens is, for everybody or for most people, the quest to go and seek the yogic experience comes because of something that happens in their life that motivates them. It may be a crisis for many people, but others it could be some other motivating factor. Second thing he pointed out over there was that initially, governed by all the readings and whatever exposures he had or whatever, he was thinking that perhaps life is about going beyond rebirth, as the way in which Buddhism and all of that they speak about. And then he realized that the life is about living your life to the fullest and letting all the karmas work through you. And this is where a lot of people have misunderstood. Yoga and the living that we do is not about walking away from life. It is all about engaging with life, doing your swadharma. And swadharma, when it is all completed and it all taken care and everything wears off, moksha that happens, or the release from rebirth, happens on its own. And this is actually very well expressed in the last stanza of the Rudra Prashna, when it talks about, and this is what is called the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, that is Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukam iva bandhanat mrityor mukshiyama amritat. What it is essentially saying is that once you go through the purification process by doing your swadharma, finally, like a ripe fruit that is ready to fall off, that is how you fall out of the rebirth cycle. So that is the second point that he mentioned. There is a third point which he has also mentioned, is that when the time comes, all the situations and wherever he needs to learn from, they were all coming in front of him. He learned from so many different places, right? So these are elements about the nature of how you learn, that you need to be in sync with your swadharma, and all the nature of existence is such it will guide you on that path. So Shashidharji, for a moment we lost you, so I summarized what you said with respect to the key elements over here. But I do have one question for you. You made the statement, we are not qualified to speak about God unless we experience God. Now what happens is, the experience of Bhrigu in the Panchakosha of Bhriguvalli is clear that you are in different levels of experiences. How do you ever know when you are able to experience beyond the body? You are able to actually connect to the highest in God. How do we know that we have reached the highest? It's very difficult to tell. Would you like to answer that question? You're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, did you call me, Doctor?
Okay,
one minute. Now I am muted.
Oh, thank
now
you.
I can. Yeah, you're okay. I'll answer the question. Now, this was the experience that I had. Now, the statement that made me go for my sadhana of Swami Vivekananda said that you have no right to talk about God unless you experience it. Now, that made me go. But after the experience, my realization was that there is no way I can express that correctly with my limitations. So that's the reason why the great people, the Munis, are in Mauna, like Dakshinamurti, and in that silence, whatever is communicated to whoever is ready in that state, it comes. But the thing changes in the state that we are in. And I fully agree with you. You're doing wonderful, actually, your whole group is doing a wonderful job, that we have to clear the doubts of the seekers and express as closely as possible about the divine in whichever level it is being manifested according to our own understanding and the depth we have gone to. So there is no choice. We have to do that, and that is a dharma. And that is a swadharma of probably you and me or many in the group who are guiding so many people, that we are in the stage that the swa, the self.
So Tammy, you have a question, go ahead, ask.
Required so many lifetimes, and that's the reason why you are put it. Even I don't like to so, but yet I am forced to come into an environment and situation where I have to speak and I have to help others. So the Swadharma is forcing you into that. I think I probably have answered that question.
Yes.
And there is nothing wrong. We can't say that we won't express at all and be silent. I wish I can be like that.
Thank you. Let's ask Tammy. Go ahead, speak your question.
Thank you. I want to say happy Mother's Day. I see you all. I also, yoga has been a place that's walked me through a lot of those spaces, the tearing apart and the reorganizing. And I see a lot of my discovery occurring right now in intention, right? I was really, the description for today's class was about prana, right? And intention and willpower. So I guess what my question is like using intention to not like just be somebody who doesn't do anything, but to use it like how in our thoughts can we use it but not use it? Like if it would be a great day that the sun would be shining today, right? And we create an intention like that, and then there's a good chance the sun can come out. Is that using intention? Yeah, like that. And then what do you have to say
about... Is the audio
about
breaking for everyone or only for me?
Sorry?
I don't know who is handling this, but is the audio breaking for everyone or only for me?
Actually, it is, I think, only for you. We don't hear half of your words.
Looks like that. Oh, then there is some problem here. Definitely, I'll have to sort this out then. So, all the words that I speak are not heard.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Probably next time I'll do that everything is proper here. Probably I'll get out of...
like the law of attraction, I guess, is where it kind of summarizes, right? We attract what we think about, right? And then who says what's...
If you put it in the context of the divinity taking you where you should go, well, you can put it that way if you like. Now, coming back actually, in this particular context, you can understand all of you here have had some degree of experience. And the first level of experience comes by relaxing the mind and letting go. And relaxing and letting go is the place where the starting process begins to go and experience your deeper self, right? So that is where we are, where we should all be focused on. However, there is always the curiosity in the mind. What is beyond? Where is this leading? What is the nature of existence? So for these, of course, you have various ways in which you can go into some discussion session, you can read a book, and this is what most people tend to do. And the Yoga Sutras is one expression. And there are many other ways in which it has been expressed, as in the Sankhya Sutras and things like that. Now, the Tantra system is not complete like the Yoga system or the Sankhya system or the Vedic system. The Tantra system has some very interesting ways in which it portrays things. And starting from this Thursday, in the Eastern USA time, 8 p.m., we have a discussion of Shankaracharya's text called Prapanchasara. Prapancha means all of creation. Sara means the essence of it. So where is the origins and all of that? It is open for anyone who wants to be part of the discussion. So if you would like to join us, feel free to just put your name in there. I'm actually going to put in for you here the link for you to join us if you want to. So here it is. But because it is 8 p.m. USA time, Eastern USA time, it may not be amenable for everyone, but if you want to, you're welcome. And I've also given you the link for the book of Prapanchasara that is available right on as a free place where you can read from archives.org. Okay. So Raju or Anita, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes. So in Yoga Nidra, don't we also have a sankalpa that, without putting our will there or getting our ego involved, we just let go of the programs in deep Yoga Nidra?
Actually, you're asking this question to me or to Shashidarji?
Shashidhar is muted or he's not able to hear.
Okay, then I'll answer the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. See, what happens is you're correct in talking about in Yoga Nidra, you're going into who you are within your deeper self. Now, when you're in your deeper self, you become open to whatever are the programs that are running within you. You let the programs run and you observe, right? So the key part is where this is where, of course, you can say your programs are being expressed. But then this is also a technique where if there is some embedded irritation that is there, it can also come out in the form, like for example, when Yoga Nidra is used to address PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. What Yoga Nidra does is, in deep relaxation, you're letting whatever is within express itself. And as these expressions start coming in your mind, you learn to be an observer of that instead of reacting to it. And that's how you get over it in Yoga Nidra, right? So you're right that Yoga Nidra allows you to express yourself. And of course, if you take away the unwanted things like PTSD that you have brought onto yourself, then in which case, in Yoga Nidra, the thoughts that come within you are your pure Sankalpa, what you are meant to do. That was your thought, right, Anita?
Yes. Thank you.
Are you able to hear my voice now?
A little bit.
Yeah, now you're back. Okay, good.
Okay, yeah, he's a doctor, as Dr. Saab has really explained it well. But you should remember that in Yoga Nidra, you start with the Sankalpa that you will not fall asleep. So there is an inbuilt Sankalpa that takes place for you to get into that state which Dr. Saab was explaining there. So there is a principle in pranic healing, which is a very simple principle called energy follows thought. So the prana flows where our intention and our thought process is. So the moment you are very clear about what you want and you do a clear sankalpa, then when you're still and completely free of all your mental thoughts and abstractions and ripples are completely, the chitta is completely still, then start manifesting and materializing. And that's why many people use Yoga Nidra to do a lot of Kriya Shakti also, to manifest things that they want to. It's a very good tool used by many, many great teachers.
So, Ceci, can you explain, like, in yoga classes, the instructor says, okay, before you start your yoga practice, sit and make an intention. And I have seen in my, I had done that, and when I was very ignorant about all this, is asking for something that you want to see manifest. And most people were doing the same thing, like want their son or their daughter or something, on a, like in our daily life stuff, until that realization comes. It's not about that, the power of intention. Right?
That's
Do
it.
you understand
So
what
we
I'm
are-
saying?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
We grow. In the process, we ourselves start ripening. And we are maturing, and this attachments start falling away. Initially, we start with attachments to our wants and what our family and this and that are all simple petty things. Probably that's equally important. But over a period of time, you find that these things are not worth going and seeking. And later on, you just become still. That's all, and enjoy the very process. Like the means and the end become one in the final stages. So then you don't specifically ask for something. That's all.
So Ratna, you have a
We
question?
are progressing.
Yes, Naren, you've always talked about affirmations as well, So how are the affirmations and Sankalpa relate? Are the same, or do you think they're different?
No, they are exactly the same. And what is the affirmation we do in meditation when we begin? We say, I let go of all ideas and concepts and I care about nothing. You're letting go so that the pure Sankalpa can reveal within you, right?
Sure, but also in a day-to-day, in a mundane life, there's so many things that you would wish to be happen. So I think one can use the free will to make affirmations or sankalpas to make life easier. That is what's wrong in it.
I'll share with you a personal experience, and I don't know how many people here can relate to it, right? Those of you who know me through Life in Yoga, many of you think I do a lot of work, right?
I do.
Right? Huh?
Yes.
And you all think I do a lot of work. In fact, I do very little. In fact, I'll share with you how I do it. Okay? So you understand how it flows. In fact, what happens?
You are a different example. I'm sorry.
No. Because this is a way whereby you can understand the role of affirmations and how it flows. Okay? Like, for example, what happens is, in my morning meditation, I'm sitting and thinking. In my meditation, I let go. So what is the day in store for me today? And if there are like a set of tasks over there that we have said, this needs to be done, that needs to be done. So I mentally asked, should that be done? The answer is no. Okay, let it all be there. And so the thing is, you see, then one item will come, and I hadn't even thought of it. It was not in my list or anything. That's what I should be doing. I go and do it, and everything gets done that day. And what happens is, similarly, what will happen is in the middle of the day, I have had lunch and I'm sitting there. So there are many more tasks to do. I sit quietly and I'm almost half asleep in meditation. And I say, this work is pending. I should go there. So what should I do? In a little while, the whole schematics of what needs to be done, all of that come into my head. Then I come back and I sit, everything gets done very quickly. So what happens is, the key part is, the more we push and we say, I have to do, the cosmic flow gets interrupted. The more we let go and ask, okay, reveal itself, then it comes, then everything becomes effortless and easy to do. That is how I can describe for you how our the affirmations should be worked. Is the affirmation should be to ask, what should I be doing? And not push for yourself to do this or that. Then everything will flow and happen very quickly, right? Any of you experience this, where you don't know what you're going to do, you let go and sleep? There, Dr. Ashok Agrawala is raising his hand. He's a fellow yogi and we spend a lot of time together. Yes, and there it is. Shashidharji has also experienced this, right?
Yeah, we don't even intend an idea, but suddenly it comes like a flash and everything starts happening.
Exactly.
Maybe we are not at your level, Rajanji. That's why we don't get it.
That's my point.
Yeah, that's what Ratna just said. It is a different feeling for an average person. We are not at that level that things just come to you and it gets done. It's all a clutter there.
No, to specifically answer her question also, there is nothing wrong in doing the Sankalpa for our needs. You see, my teacher, Master Chokok Sui, who founded the pranic healing system, Yoga Vidya pranic healing system, just that what he uses. So there's a slight difference between affirmation and a decree. Decree is also a very precise word. He says you have to decree because you are a grihastha, you are in the family life, you have your needs that are very important which have to be met, and there is nothing wrong for you to decree or do the sankalpa for what you want. You feel that is very important for your day-to-day living, and it is going to help you to further your own leisure and comforts or time for thinking of higher things. So he would always say that don't, for example, most of the people would think about money in my life. He would say, yes, you to do your Kriya Shakti or your degree or patience for having.
Your voice is going away. Okay. And he's also gone. Okay. So the thing is, you see, I don't necessarily agree with what he is saying. The key part is what happens is whatever you're meant to do for your resources, everything, they come and stand in front of you. It gets done. And the thing is for you to push and say, I have to do, it need not, you don't need to push anything. Everything will happen. And you know, this is where in the bhakti tradition and people who are fully really surrendered to the higher, it happens where whatever needs to be done, they come forth. But the only thing that can be in your way is your own laziness to go and act. So we should not fall victim to laziness. Whereas on the other hand, as long as you're open and peaceful in your mind, things will unfold on its own. The nature of the pure Sankalpa. So anybody else, actually, Ashokji, Dr. Ashok Agrawal, he raised his hand about how he has experienced. Would you like to share your thoughts on this? That may be illustrative for people.
Okay. What I find is that, again, as Rajanji was saying, I don't plan any kind of things and things happen.
Cutting off in between.
Whatever opportunity comes, whatever things.
It's all right. Anyway, good that Dr. Saab is there. He'll take over always and he'll give the correct answers anyway.
Sorry, Ashokji, go ahead.
Anyway, as I was saying that I don't push for anything at all. And thereby things happen. But let me elaborate a little bit further. As somebody reaches the level of Rajanji, the divinity essentially provides, or cosmic flow provides, all the resources that are needed. But for mere mundane people like us, when we have not reached that kind of a level, we still go by our intention. And some kinds of things work out and some don't. So from what I see, when some things are more in line with the divine cosmic flow, then things work out easier. When they are not, then certain kinds of obstacles and such things come in. Now we can raise the question about if we are putting any intention of our own, do the other resources become available like they would if it was in cosmic flow? To me, the answer is it depends on how much in line it is and what kind of things can come around you to support the kinds of things that you're doing. That's how it looks to me. But I've experienced many times that I would think about doing certain things like Rajanji was saying, and something else will pop up and I'll do that rather than doing what originally I may have thought. So this does actually happen. That's all I can say.
Yes, there is. I would like to give you a little bit of a sense from the yoga and traditional literature about the idea of how you can use willpower at the highest level and how it can go astray. You see, in the highest level, God is outside all of creation. When people talk of entire Brahmanda, Brahmanda is the created entity, but God is outside that. So the thing is, you see, what happens is, when we are working in the Brahmanda state, we are working in the zone of what is called Prakriti, or the creative processes, right? And in the creative processes, which we are part of with all the programs, the karma kleshas we are all embedded with, we are acting when we go into quietness, we are interacting over there. And if you reach the highest level where you can connect even beyond into Prakriti, then in which case you can begin changing the course of programs in there. And if that is against the flow of what God had planned, then in which case consequences can happen. And a good story that comes from the tradition is that of the sage called Vishwamitra. And the sage Vishwamitra, he was always mentally competing with another exalted sage called Vasishtha, right? And so Vasishtha was highly recognized, and Vishwamitra felt he didn't have the same level of recognition. So there was this king over there who wanted to attain heaven in his whole body. So Vishwamitra, so he went to his teacher Vasishtha and told him, I would like to ascend to heaven in my whole body. So his teacher told him, Vasishtha told him, that is not part of the dharmic flow, so we won't do it. So then, he said, we can't do it. We can't be done. So he went to Vishwamitra. And Vishwamitra obviously couldn't do it either. But then what happened is, when he tried to force, he said, okay, I will create an alternate Brahmanda and I will put you over there. Then when he tried to do that, in that process, of course, many of you, have heard the story that this king, he got hung in midway. He was neither there nor here. And so it's called Trishanku, right? And the other part of it is, you have also heard of the story, as a result of which Vishwamitra lost all his yogic connectivity and power. He lost everything. And the only way in which he could get back is, he had to go back and do a lot more sadhana to get rid of all the unwanted things that he had brought on to him by trying to force things, right? So this idea of force is something that we should seek to avoid. And that is the real essence of this subject matter, that this power of Sankalpa in daily living is, let's learn to live our life in a natural flow without forcing anything. Any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah, Rajan. Is the ideal state living in a very passive mode, or there is that effort and the effort just has to be put properly? So I'm a little bit confused on letting things happen. I don't think by that, my understanding is that it's a completely passive way of life. It's more that the connectivity properly puts your effort in a proper way.
That is the right way to understand. The thing is, basically, we are not talking about passivity, and that's why I said you should not be lazy and just be over there, but rather that intuition directs you, everything comes, and you need to engage your effort. But what it is light effort will go a long way, and it will accomplish things. And this is where, when Maharishi Mahesh Yogi started teaching this mantra-based meditation technique, he called his institution in India as Maharishi Institute of Creative Intelligence. And when he called it that way, his idea was, then when you do this mantra-based meditation, it clears everything and you go into the state of mindlessness, and from there, everything becomes clarified for you, your Swadharma. As a result of which, what happens is, by doing the daily meditation, your mind is so clear, everything is so clear, whatever you do is very fruitful because you're directed in the right path. So the idea is not to be passive, but rather to become better directed. That is the idea of that what we call as the pure Sankalpa. So Raju, that's what you meant, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Ravi Shankarji, go ahead.
Yes, good evening and I would say that insightful sessions, and the meaning of Sankalpa, according to me, because I am also in the path of spirituality, there could be different kind of Sankalpas. For example, at a lower level could be that, okay, I want to pass the exam, I want to have a job. Little bit higher level could be that I want to achieve a divine bliss in my yogic practices or do some welfare to the society. So who is going to decide that one? There could be hundreds, thousands of things for you, open for you.
Yes,
So
the answer is very simple.
Yeah.
The thing is, let the seed of the thought go and leave it into the cosmic domain. And then the answer will come as it should be. So this is the basic idea in yoga of what is called the samyama process, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. In the dharana, you have the intent. So you want a good job, you say mentally, I would really like a good job, but Cosmos, please guide me, whatever is right for me. So what you have done is, you want something, but on the other hand, you let go to the Cosmos to guide whatever is appropriate for you, right? So you want something and you say, well, I would like this thing, but you please, Cosmos, guide me if this is appropriate for me.
But how much time it's going to take, Dr. Rajan,
It doesn't
Is
matter.
there a time limit? Is there a time limit or you may not get any answer within this birth also?
No. What happens is, as long as you're in the mode of letting go and there is, what I call a purity in the intent, and as you purify, it will all come. Now, I'll give you an example of this. And actually, let me put it this way. I don't need to give an example because it'll go into a spiritual domain that you may not well relate to. But I'm sure within this group, there must be at least one person over here who would have had a question in their mind. And that question was sitting somewhere in the back of the mind. One day they wake up in the morning and they know the answer. It all came it must have happened through whatever happened in the sleep. They wake up in the morning, they know the answer. Has this happened to anyone here? There you go. So many people raising the hands, right? So the thing is, you see, that is how things happen. And it didn't really happen the next day morning. It may be a few mornings later that it happened, right? So the thing is, you see, that is the nature of it. You let go and it'll come back. We have to...
thank you.
It takes its own time.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan. I have got one related question also because, okay, we can do Sankalpa, we can do meditative practices, spiritual practices, all good things, japa. But what is the God's grace element here? How does it connect here? Because end of the day, the people, the gurus, they say that, okay, you have to also wait for the God's grace. So what is the relevance here?
What is very interesting is, there are multiple approaches to our experience that is given right from the Yoga Sutras. The Yoga Sutra says, one approach for you is to have the approach of learning to observe, become a pure observer by being less reactive. That's how you purify yourself. And when you're fully purified and you ask any questions, you get the answer. That is how you get the wisdom. Now, right in the first pada of the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali Muni says, Ishvara pranidhanat va. Or by surrender to God, you get all of that. And how does he describe God? He describes God as something that is outside the cycle of karmas and kleshas. And he also describes God as the seed of all knowledge. And he furthermore describes God is the guru of everyone at all times. And he also describes that God is the source of Chetana for all living beings. And Chetana is different from Chitta. And so the thing is, you see, so in other words, what happens is, the moment, and in fact, in the first sutra of the second chapters, in the definition of Kriya Yoga, and of course, later on in the second chapter, in the definition of this niyama, he makes it very clear. In the Kriya Yoga, tapas swadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. In other words, what is happening? Kriya Yoga is literally Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, people will say, is what we do without motivation for any results or anything. We are just an observer. We are just doing it and going along. And what are the real components of that Kriya Yoga or Karma Yoga? One component of it is that you simply, surrender everything to God. And what you do is, you do engage your effort in whatever you're doing. Tapas is about engaging effort. It is by engaging effort you burn your karmas. The purification happens. But then, at the same time, you keep asking the question, why? That is the swadhyaya part. That internal questioning in your mind, why? This is the process that leads to it. So in other words, leading life to the fullest and leading life without getting attracted to external titillations. That is the way in which you learn to be in sync with yourself. Right? I'm going to ask a question over here, many of you over here. The part is, you see, typically, if you are looking at a young group or crowd, they all go into a party, they jump and make a lot of noise and do various things. But what happens? After a point in time, you find that doesn't appeal to you anymore. In fact, that is more external titillation. But the more internal awareness comes in the quietness, right?
Yes, very much, Dr. Rajan. I think you explained quite well, and it seems after hearing from you, I'm on the right path. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or thoughts?
Can I share a thought, Rajanji?
Please go ahead.
To me, it seems that a fundamental fact is that we can spend any moment of time in one and only one way. And we are the ones who are, we meaning the Jivatma, is the one that is deciding how that moment has to be spent. Now, to decide, either it can come from our insight or our forceful intention, or that intention may be in line with the divine flow and the Sankalpa or pure Sankalpa that might be coming in. However, we can only spend it in one way. Any action that we take will have consequences, and those consequences will come about later in time rather than right then. Now, when they appear later in time and we are committed to them, then we have said something about expectation in the future, which is likely to distort when we reach that particular time. Our thinking, our basically decision making and such, because we'll be concerned about, oh, I did that and the result didn't come in. When we are carrying out action with no commitment to the consequences, that means we are not committing any to the future, and we are just doing things right then and there. So that's how it seems to me these things get tied together.
He just pointed out in the last how karmas are created. It is because you have expectations and you have attachment to the result, karmas are created.
Yeah, he answered it himself.
Exactly.
Yeah, but there's one more angle to it. If I would like to share, for those who really wanted to know why things are not happening, in spite of they doing everything that is good and doing karmas and everything. So an explanation was given, like, a checkbook in the bank, you see. Unless you have a minimum bank balance, you cannot use the checkbook in the Indian banks. That is how it is. In the same way, your good or bad karmas, it will have their own bank balance, you see. when you have a minimum amount of good karmas balance, then things start materializing faster. Even your petty wishes start materializing faster if you have a bank balance of very good karmas, you see, a lot of good karmas that you're doing. And that is why it is said that the moment you see things are not happening, what you want and all these things, it means that there are some more backlog of old, not very good karmas that have to be neutralized. And so you have to do a lot more good karmas so that is neutralized and the bank balance of good karmas are built up. An example was being given, you see, of some of the saints like Mata Amritanandmayi or Puttapat Sai Baba or things like that, that they would intend. Probably that is pure Sankalpa. That's the reason why the power is much more. You see, it is a pure spirit at work. They would intend and everything will fall in line. They think in 6 months, I want to do this project, a hospital to be built, and money, donations, everything will start coming. In the same way, even at the level of the class, we'll see that some of us hardly studied. We were very playful and all that, and yet we got reasonably very good marks, you see. Whereas there were some who would work so hard, so sincere, and yet they won't get marks. Why is it? Because you're born with a bank balance of good or bad karmas. And that is the reason why, if you understand this at a lay level, then you will have to work for creating good karmas so that things will start falling in line faster and they start materializing things. But that's only the beginning. You go to the higher level, the pure Sankalpa, then allow things to happen, and it will happen because you're already ready.
Okay, Shashidharji, the thing is for this group, explaining why bad things happen to people in their life and why good things don't happen. It's a very materialistic view of what we are thinking from a worldly perspective.
Yes.
But the real part of it is we want to go outside the clutches of karma. Karmas and kleshas are really about what drives you, whether good or bad things that are happening in life. But the real zone of true Sankalpa is to go beyond that, which is what he said in this last sentence.
Yeah, that's our, if we are all in the field of yoga, obviously that should be our intention. And that's the reason we should not feel bad that things are not happening for us. Whatever happens, the one principle in spiritual life is whatever happens is for our own good. That happens because it is required to happen. And that is the divine will to which you always bow down to, you see.
And as we say, if the mind does not come in the way, you accept whatever happens, and that is the yogic way.
That is it.
Any other questions, thoughts, discussions?
Yes, so I would like a comment on something. When I reflect, it seems that I've been a seeker for a long time, but many times not a very sincere one. But more recently, it has become much more sincere. And there's almost like a panic setting in that, okay, you only have this much time now and, things are not happening. Both of you have commented on that. But recently I came across some reading which says that, the thinking itself is wrong because, life itself is eternal. So that eternal element completely removes that anxiousness to get something done. So when you're dealing in that plane where time is not that much of an issue, I'm wondering, I'm just thinking intellectually, but at that level, what is actually the way to function?
Well, I think you have answered your own question.
Yeah.
It is irrelevant. The thing is, you see, the idea of, that worry inside you can have only a short time is you don't worry about it because you're eternal. And the interesting thing is, in a bhakti mode, it is often said that the person who surrenders to God doesn't worry about whether the person gets moksha or not. And in fact, whatever God wants, let it take care of itself. So when we go from that attitude and realizing we are only an instrument of the cosmic flow, whatever is meant to come, it takes care of it, right? So you answered your own question.
There's a nice story, actually. I think most of us must have read this small story about two great saints who were meditating on the in the Himalayas for hundreds of years or for a long time. Then the great sage Narada or some all Trikala Jnani comes there, and the first one asks, you see, when will I have my moksha? And he says, 1,000 years from now. And so he's very, very, unhappy about it, because all the time he's thinking about his moksha and mukti and all that. Then the second person, he goes up, and second person again asks the same question. He says, it takes 10,000 years. Then he says, oh, 10,000 years, at least I'm having my moksha. And in that instant, he gets that moksha and the mukti. It's like he let goes, you see. The answer is, you answered yourself. You don't have to worry at all about the time is short or things. Just let go and allow the flow to take place. It'll take place. That's all it is.
So looks like this was a very simple question for the subject matter, except there is the little nuance over there. It's all about learning to let go, be an observer, but that's not an excuse for being lazy. But we have to be active, proactive, but we have to let the intent flow naturally without pushing it and bringing our willpower and mind in the way, right?
Yes.
So looks like we are done because there are no more questions. So shall we close here for today?
Rajanji, can I raise not a question directly related to it, but it's coming to my mind, so I'll rather raise it.
Mm-hmm.
In most of the time when you go to temple or you see various kinds of ceremonies being performed by priests and such, they do all of that in Sanskrit. Is it that the Indian gods only understand Sanskrit and no other language?
I can answer that question.
Yeah.
In fact, what it is there are, everything is about connecting. You cannot communicate. If you say, you ask the gods to understand Sanskrit, Indian gods, you made the question. So in order to understand, you have to communicate, right?
Right.
So in order to communicate into the spiritual domain, there are two approaches to it. One is you have the right vibration to communicate, which is pure sound.
Right.
And the second approach to communication is that you're a purified being and your mere thought goes over there. So in other words, what happens is, if you are in that purified being where it is only pure thought, you can say it in any language, it doesn't matter, because it is the thought that matters. And whereas on the other hand, if you are not fully pure and you need to use a vibration to connect, which is the concept of the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's equal and opposite vibration, that vibration has no meaning. It is only a sound. So there are two approaches to it, to think about it.
Understand, and you have pointed out before that mantras are of two types. The short ones are for invocation, and longer ones are typically affirmations.
Yes.
And the affirmations are like Mahamrityunjaya mantra and things like that. They have an effect only if the one who is pronouncing it understands the meaning of it.
Exactly.
So ultimately, the connection is going at that thought level or meaning level or deeper level.
Exactly.
And the language to that extent is only an expression which has no relevance in some sense.
Exactly. You can say it in any language.
Or no language.
No language. Just a thought is good enough.
That's right. So lots of people make such a big deal about saying only in Sanskrit, like they would try to identify you, like Sridharji was talking about your Gotra and about your parents and about the location and about the time, translating it in Sanskrit. And to me, that makes no sense at all.
Actually, I will say something more.
Yeah.
In fact, what it is people often don't think about the kind of connectivity and where we are going. In fact, most places of worship and meditation, all of them, they actually connect into the higher Prakriti. They do not connect into Ishvara. They don't connect into the Purusha or the higher Ishvara. So what happens is when you connect into the higher Prakriti, you're able to do many things. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have reached the highest. So but what happens is all of these experiences serve a purpose. And what purpose does it serve? It serves to understand that this body and physical world is not who we are. That's only an expression of something beyond. And whoever we are is beyond all of this. So it serves a purpose. And in fact, that is why even within the Indian philosophical system, they will say, a temple is a good place for everyone to go. But finally, when you have realized the higher connection, the temple comes to you. You don't need to go there anymore.
Very true.
So I guess we are done for today. Any last words from anyone?
Thank you, Ceci.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you all.
much.
So much.
Thank you
Thanks.
all.
Namaste,
Good to be with all of you.
Namaste, everyone.
I'll improve
Thank
my.
you,
Namaste.
Yeah, please do. That's
Happy
fine.
Mother's Day to all
We
the mothers.
managed it.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you and namaste. Bye.
Namaste, everyone.